then we have another program in this one little temple area of my immediate GBC responsibility. We've opened a permanent center in at the Pennsylvania State University, which is about less than an hour from the farm. The farm is right in the middle of the beautiful forests and rivers, and yet a mile away is this university. It's one of the biggest universities in the country. There are about 40 or 50,000 students, and one nice brahmachari, Stamba brahmachari, has gone there and opened a permanent center in the old style of college preaching, that he's always there, people can always come by, and more and more he's getting deeply into relationship with the students and the university. Some devotees have already been made. And to me it's very pleasing to see that kind of preaching going on, one-to-one preaching with especially the intelligent class of people. So at Gitanagari I'm able to work very nicely on Prabhupada's biography. So we have a staff there now also. It's like a BBT department. It's grown from just my working alone to about 6 people. His biography requires so much research. We have a whole room full of different files, and in Los Angeles there are another about 4 or 5 typists who are typing full-time. They're typing all of Prabhupada's words practically that he spoke, not just like you get on the tape ministry, but there's so many tapes of him talking to his servant or talking in his room, and practically they're trying to type everything. And we have to go through this material and try to take out things that can especially help us tell about Prabhupada's life. And then we've gone, these different workers have gone all over the world, gotten a lot of encouragement and personal help from Radha Ballabha, who will publish the book. And we've gone all over the world interviewing any devotee who had any association with Prabhupada. So we're collecting so much of that interview material, and then it's being filed under the date and the time and the subject. And then Prabhupada's letters, there's 7,000 letters he's written, so they have to go through them and put them in some order that I can deal with this massive material and put it into a pleasing written form. So that's going to take, we don't know how long it'll take. We say 5 years, maybe it will take longer. The devotees seem to be satisfied as long as we come out with these installments. But if I speak of the greatness of the biography, it does not make me greater, because I'm just working on it also. It's Prabhupada's life. So we can't speak of the great importance of this thing, because one devotee, Rupanuga, was making a nice expression about it. He said that actually we want the whole world to take to Krishna consciousness. And the principle is that they have to approach the Guru. So those who are fortunate enough to seriously take it up will approach the spiritual masters, the Prabhupada has empowered, and will be coming in the future, and take an initiation. But even for the masses of people who are not serious enough to take initiation, they also have to approach, not Krishna directly, but through the spiritual master. So at least they have to see who is the spiritual master, the founder acharya of this ISKCON movement, in order to get respect for Krishna. So we want to make him known, not just by this written biography, but in other ways also, that he be known throughout the world in history as a great, great saintly person that he was, which he's not known now. So among the different things, there is the memorials of the buildings of the samadhis which are being built in India, and there's like in America, there's Prabhupada's palace. So the biography's place among these kind of living memorials is very crucial, because books are so important. So when this can actually be done by Krishna's grace, then Prabhupada's glory will be known by people, common people, and educated people all over the world. It's very important. He's already glorious. We can't actually make him more glorious. But the people who do not know anything about him, we don't want them to make up completely different things in the years to come about what he was. So if everything is there, they'll not be able to do that. And this is our duty as his followers. So these are the activities that I'm mostly involved in, as well as other international GBC things that come up, wherever they may come up around the world, involving the standards of Krishna consciousness movement. But I'm always hoping that so many things don't happen, that I can be spared to concentrate on this work, the biography. So then, spend some time reading installments. These early periods are very wonderful. Here's an installment we prepared for Back to Godhead. We're given the title, Just Hear Me. Srila Prabhupada had come to America to speak about Krishna. From the beginning of his stay, he had found opportunities. The living room gatherings at the Agarwals, the one-time lecture appearances in churches, schools, and the Lions Club of Butler, Pennsylvania. He had spent an hour at the University of Pennsylvania talking to Dr. Norman Brown's Hinduism class. In New York, he had given lectures at the Tagore Society and at the Mishra Yoga Society. But he did not give great importance to speeches in places where people gathered to hear him once and then went away. This was the main reason he wanted a New York building, so people could regularly come, chant Hare Krishna mantra, take prasadam in his company, and regularly, repeatedly hear him speaking from the Gita and Bhagavatam. When Srila Prabhupada moved out of Dr. Mishra's studio into a small office, he had what he was looking for, his own place. But by no stretch of euphemism could his room be called a temple. His name was on the door, however, and anyone seeking him could find him there. But who would come to such a place? The idea of a Krishna temple was to attract people by opulent surroundings, but room 307 was just the opposite, bare poverty. Even someone interested in spiritual topics would find it uncomfortable, sitting on the rugless floor of a room shaped like a narrow railroad car. But Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master had told him years before not to be despondent if few people attended the kirtan or lecture. Even if no one attends, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had told him, you can go on chanting to the 4 empty walls. Thus it was Srila Prabhupada's personal duty to glorify Lord Krishna in whatever setting God provided. The first people who came to see him there were a few of Dr. Mishra's students who had met Srila Prabhupada at the 5th floor yoga studio. One of them donated a reel-to-reel tape recorder, and Srila Prabhupada began recording his talks. He taped several hours of an essay called Introduction to Gita Upanishad, which he later used in his published translation of the Bhagavad Gita. He also recorded his chanting and singing of bhajans, devotional songs, singing alone to his own accompaniment with cartels. In talks, punctuated with sounds of car horns and occasional sirens from the street, Srila Prabhupada began his first regular Gita lectures in America, starting from the 2nd chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Now Arjuna is perplexed. Thus, Prabhupada spoke on March 19, 1966. He is perplexed whether to fight or not to fight. After seeing his relatives in front of him with whom he was to fight, he was perplexed. And there was some argument with Krishna. Now here is a point. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prabhupada's voice is earnest. Sometimes it squeaks with an urgency, a communicative plea to his listeners. Vocally, he is very convincing, as one who is completely sincere. His English is heavily accented, a combination of native Indian and cultured British. Srila Prabhupada suddenly pauses in the delivery of his lecture and addresses someone in the room. Prabhupada. What is that? Man in the room. what? Prabhupada. What is this book? Man. Well, this is the translation of the Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada is obviously displeased that while he is speaking, someone is looking through a book. This is hardly like the respect offered to the learned speakers described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhupada. Well, no, you can hear me. Man. I am hearing. Prabhupada, taking the role of a teacher and correcting his student. Yes, don't turn your attention. Just hear me. At this time, Srila Prabhupada was not an established spiritual master of many disciples. He had no disciples in America, and there was no compelling reason why any of his casual guests would feel obliged to obey or listen to him. He was simply begging for their attention, and yet demanding, just hear me, in his attempt to convince people to become Krishna-conscious devotees. Prabhupada continued, you have heard that acceptance of the spiritual master must be selected after careful examination, just like one selects a bride or bridegroom after careful examination. In India, they are very careful because the marriage of boys and girls takes place under the guidance of the parents. So the parents very carefully see. So similarly, if one has to accept the spiritual master, it is necessary. According to Vedic injunction, everyone should have a spiritual master. Perhaps you have seen a sacred thread. We have got sacred thread. Mr. Cohen, you have seen sacred thread. Srila Prabhupada pauses. His audience may not have noted the white cords he is wearing across the upper part of his body. They can be seen around his neck. Millions of brahmanas in India for thousands of years have been wearing such threads, which are placed diagonally across the torso, looped over the left shoulder, and draped diagonally down to the right waist. A brahmana holds his thread in his right hand while chanting the Gayatri mantra 3 times a day. But it's strange, indeed, to Americans. Prabhupada himself is exotic to them. His gray chadar around his shoulders, he sits cross-legged and erect on a thin pillow, and they sit facing him on the other side of his trunk, which is now functioning as a desk and a lectern. They are close together in the narrowness of the room under a dim light. He is frail and small and foreign to them. Yet somehow he is completely assured in a way that has nothing to do with being a foreigner in New York, and they can sense it. 2 white clay-painted lines run neatly vertical on his forehead. His drab, peach-colored clothes are gathered in loose folds around his body. He pauses only a second, inquiring from them if they have ever seen a white sacred thread. That sacred thread is a sign that a person has a spiritual master. Here, of course, there is no such distinction, but according to the Hindu system, a married girl also has some sign, so that people can understand that this girl is married. They put a red mark so that others may know that this girl is married. And according to the division in the hair, what is this line called? Man. Heart. Prabhupada. Eh? Man. Heart. Prabhupada. What is the spelling? Man. Heart. Prabhupada. Heart. This parting also has some meaning. They know English and he knows Gita. But he knows a good deal of English, whereas the Gita has to be completely spoon-fed to them. But occasionally he asks in reciprocation, and they help supply him English words. When the part is in the middle, then the girl has her husband, and she is coming from a respectable family. And if the partition is here, with a slight gesture he indicates a part on the side of the head, then she is a prostitute. There was a king's ruling that a prostitute cannot part here. And then again, when a girl is well dressed, it should be considered that she has her husband at home. And when she is not well dressed, it is to be understood that her husband is out of home. You see? And a widow's dress. There are so many symptoms. So similarly, the sacred thread is a sign that this person has accepted a spiritual master. Just as the red mark symbolizes the girl has a husband. Similarly, the sacred thread is a symbol that this man has got a spiritual master. One could say that Srila Prabhupada was broaching a very heavy topic at an early point in his meetings. What is the need of taking a spiritual master? Is this just for India? But he said everyone should have a spiritual master. What is a spiritual master, anyway? Probably most of the audience, however, didn't take it seriously, not as if they were faced with a personal decision. They may have taken the idea of accepting a spiritual master as another cultural item from